I would never want to take a trophy away from one of the other. I love the ladies at our club. They're wonderful. I wouldn't want to take, I can outdrive them by 100
Yeah,
yards,
exactly.
you know, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just my arms are longer. I'm 6'1". What I got left over is more than what most people.
Stop what you're doing, because this is something you rarely hear. A transgender woman, one of the most well-known in the world, went on live TV and said something that has sparked intense debate, that trans athletes competing in women's sports isn't fair. No hedging, no political spin, just her personal view based on her own experience. In a time when this topic can ignite major controversy, Caitlyn Jenner's comments have drawn attention from all sides. Before you decide what you think, hear what she actually said. Let's get into it.
You're perfectly qualified, Caitlyn, to talk about this, because I have a strong view that I support trans rights to fairness and equality, but in issues like sport and women's sport, not to the point where it starts to degrade the fairness and equality for women competitors in sport, for example. You've competed as a man, hugely successfully, and now you've transitioned to be a woman. What is your view about this?
Well, I've been, you know, first of all, you're right. We have to do the best we can here. But I have said from the beginning, and I stand with it, that I don't want biological boys to compete against women and girls in sports. It's just not fair. Now, obviously, over the last 6 months, especially, because of Leah Thomas at the University of Pennsylvania, she had been on the boys' team just a few years earlier. I do not blame her. She played within the rules, but she dominated. She had gone through male puberty. Her lungs are bigger, her back's bigger, her hands are bigger. She just has a tremendous advantage in swimming in the pool against the women, and you know, and she proved that. So I don't have a problem with her. I have a problem with the NCAA, that we have to change the rules. We have to do a better job, because the bottom line is we have to keep it fair. And I don't want to ruin women's sports or discourage women from getting into sports because they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to compete against a bunch of guys.
I mean, I totally agree.
It's just not fair.
I totally agree, Caitlyn. But what I would also say is I don't want to expose trans people to mockery, which is now going on with this debate, because it looks so ridiculous that you see Leah Thomas just dominating women's sport. And I think that trans people who don't want to be part of any big angry debate about this, want to go about their lives in peace and quiet and get on with it, I think they're being affected adversely by this debate. And it seems to me nobody's prepared to put their head over the parapet and go, look, this is clearly unfair and wrong. Here's how we're going to change things. If you were in charge of changing things to make it fair, what is the answer? Should trans women athletes, for example, compete against men? Should trans athletes have their own category now of competition, given there are more and more trans athletes? What's the answer?
Well, here's the problem we have here. This is a very, very complicated issue. Just like being trans is very complicated. Right. There's no right answer here, Pierce. If you just say, you know, no trans athletes, you know, in sports, well, what about female to male? They're trans. That's 49% of the population. 51% are male to female. What happens to the young trans athletes who transitioned? Some of them, when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, they take hormone blockers, and they grow up as little girls their whole life. They have no advantage whatsoever, you know, over the other girls. And what do we do there? So it almost has to be treated on an individual basis. But I think the first thing we have to do is we have to make the qualifying for a trans athlete a little bit more difficult for them to be able to compete. Because I think the number one thing we have to do is protect women's sport.
Here's where it gets more interesting. Caitlyn Jenner says the issue isn't black and white, pointing out that someone who transitioned before puberty is different from someone who didn't. But she also shares a personal example. Despite no rule requiring it, she chooses not to compete in women's golf at her club because she believes it wouldn't be fair. She also says the Leah Thomas' controversy hurt public trust in the broader trans community. Whether you agree or not, it's a perspective that's fueling a much larger conversation.
What you never see,
women in
Caitlyn,
sports. That's
what
the
you never
bottom line.
see, you mentioned there people who transition from female to male, but you never see any issue there on the sporting side because they never have an unfair advantage. You know, the key point really about, I guess, trans women athletes is they have an unfair, natural, biological advantage. That's the nub of the problem.
If they went through male puberty,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I went through male puberty, okay? I mean, I don't even play. I mean, I play a lot of golf.
Yeah.
And at our club, I mean, I play with the women a lot. And by the way, Pierce, the women are a lot more fun to play with than the men, but the conversation's much better. But they always ask, you know, say, hey, we've got a tournament coming up. Yeah, we've got a tournament coming up. You want to play with us? And, you know, when I'm there, I say, oh, well, that would be fun. But then I never show up. Why? Because it's just, honestly, I would never want to take a trophy away from one of the other. I love the ladies at our club. They're wonderful. I wouldn't want to take, I can outdrive them by 100 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and yeah, and it's just my arms are longer. I'm 6'1". What I got left over is more than what most people ever had. And so it just wouldn't be fair.
Caitlyn,
yeah, so
Caitlyn,
I don't play in that. And to be honest with you, Leah Thomas is,
Go on.
you know, honestly, Leah Thomas is one of the toughest, one of the hardest, one of the worst things that happened to the trans community.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's such bad publicity.
Yeah.
I've met so many wonderful trans people doing wonderful things, living their life authentically. I hope Leah Thomas, it's over for her now because she's out of college. And I just hope she has a wonderful life. Being trans is not easy. And I hope she enjoys the rest of her life and has a good life.
You know what, Caitlyn?
But we really,
what
Leah did is we need to look at the rules.
I agree. Listen, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't want ill will to anyone involved in this debate. I just want fairness and equality. And I don't want women's rights to be eroded at the altar of political correctness and a scaredness to have a debate. Caitlyn, we've got to leave it there. It's been a brilliant interview. Thank you. Come back soon.
At the end of the interview, Piers Morgan argues that protecting women's sports shouldn't be avoided simply because the conversation is controversial. That's why this debate continues to draw so much attention. Supporters and critics alike argue that fairness in competition deserves an open discussion. What made this interview stand out was that Caitlyn Jenner, speaking from her own perspective, said she believes the current situation isn't fair. Whether you agree with her or not, it's a viewpoint that has become part of a much broader public debate. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown worthwhile, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more.